Hello YouTube, hi, my name is Mark. This is Nixon Motorsports. Hey, this channel is all about motorsports, from racing to exotic cars and even simulators. Today's video, we will get into Motec and Geartronics package for use with motorcycle powered race cars. I think you'll find this interesting, so come on, let's get into it. Hey YouTube, hi. So before we get into the video, really quickly, I do need to disclose to you both Motec and Geartronics what our relationship is with both companies. Motec, we're simply a customer. We've been a customer for years and continue to be so. For Geartronics, however, we do have a commercial arrangement in place where we can promote, sell, and support the Geartronics products. So I want to disclose that to you. Last point, throughout this video and towards the end of the video, I will be talking to you about some solutions and products that we sell and support ourselves at Nixon Motorsports. So keep all that in mind. With that though, let's get into the video. Come on. Okay, so today's video, as I mentioned, is about Motec and Geartronics for motorcycle powered race cars. So let's start with, who is this video for? Well, if your race car has a motorcycle powered engine, number one, then this is for you. But there's multiple different reasons. So let me talk about a few of those. If you're seeking to extract, the most power, the best performance you can out of your engine, then this might be one reason alone, just for that. If you've been wanting to upgrade your paddle shifting or improve the shifting performance, this might be another reason. Things like the desire to move to a closed loop fuel management, no longer having to deal with those fuel pressure settings, to try to adjust your AFR is another. Having dynamic engine modes or maps might be of interest. Simply just upgrading to a more professional or expandable data acquisition solution is another. There's many more, but that gives you an idea. If these resonate with you, then I would suggest this video might be of interest to you. So let me talk about some of the challenges that at least I've seen over the years in racing my motorcycle powered Formula 1000 race car. And it has to do with some of the limitations around using the factory or the OEM ECU for that engine. So the first point here, paddle shifting does require external means to make it work. Now, some of you will know some of the later model ECUs from various different motorcycle engine manufacturers do include some shifting capability, but to make that work with an external paddle shift system is definitely a handful. These do have open loop AFR, so fuel management in a closed loop manner is limited or not supported for the most part. Drive-by-wire, yes, a lot of the newer ECUs, 2018, 2016 for that matter, and newer Kawasaki and Suzuki, do have drive-by-wire, but is problematic making your paddle shifting system work using the OEM, again, ECU for that purpose. This one drove me crazy. Basically, I'm talking about here limited access to trim tables. So yes, you can flash your ECU, and we all have and do. Willock is an example, is a product that allows you to do that. And with that, you have the ability to obviously change your fuel tables, your ignition tables, and so on. And there's a handful of others, but not all of those trim or various different tables are accessible to you as the end user. So I always found that frustrating. The lack of any logging in the ECU itself, or very limited logging, is another point. You know, CAN bus is available. Normally this is one bus. It does help you tie into other systems, but there are some limitations around that. And I would have to say, especially on the performance side, extracting the peak power out of your engine can be a challenge using the factory ECU. So the lead of this video talks about Motec. It talks about Geartronics, at least for those two different product or names that I'll get into. So as that may imply, I'll be talking about Motec from an ECU point of view. And I thought I would spend a minute and just pause and talk about the Motec M1 series. And that is what I do recommend, and you'll see that throughout the rest of this video. So for those of you who have used Motec over the years past, you know, Motec has had what they call the gold box series or generation of ECUs, and these were the, you know, the 400, the M400s, the M800s, and so on. The new generation of Motec ECUs are classified or come under what's called the M1 Series ECUs, and these are a big change from the previous gold box. Number one, they are extremely powerful, so modern technology, a tremendous amount of horsepower and compute power within the ECUs, which is great. But they arrive, or you purchase them basically with no firmware, with no primary application in the ECU itself. So it's a little interesting to kind of get your head wrapped around that. But basically, Motec has done that for the purpose of complete flexibility. And you buy the hardware platform, the version of the ECU, and then you will load and marry that, if you will, with the firmware, or they call it package, to execute in your ECU, if that makes sense. But these ECUs, or engine management packages, the M1 series, are extremely powerful. You know, internal logging, you know, tons of channels that are completely programmable and flexible. This chart here to your to where I'm pointing here to the right side shows you at least some of the basic functionality, you know, outputs, inputs, and so on for the different M1 series. So at the very top here, you can see port injection engines. You have the M130 up through the M190, and then you have the direct injection engines starting at the the M122 up to the M182. So here, as you glance through this, you can see, you know, various different you know, like digital inputs and analog voltage inputs and so on, to decide which version of the ECU that you would need. Okay. So Geartronics package. Let me get into that. Talk about you know, what that is and some of the benefits. Before I do, though, on the Geartronics side, it probably makes sense to pause for a minute or talk to the standard Motec packages that are available today. So you have an idea of some of the functionality between these different packages. So these are the primary packages here to the left. So you have the GPA, which is the lower cost package, and you can see some of the functionality in the GPA, right? From pit speed limiting, switchable fuel, ignition boost trimmings, you know, knock control, drive-by-wire. You can see the list here. And then with the GPR, the second one down here on the list, it's all of the GPA features, but with the addition of traction control, gear change, ignition cut capability, launch control, and so on. And the last one, this GPRP, is all of those features with the last addition of paddle shifting capability all built in, right? So those are the basic Motec packages. And then this graphical picture here, I'm just showing that in a different view. You can see between the different M ECUs, right? So you can see the M130 here. You can see the different functionality and pieces plug and played there with the GPRP package. Now, I only showed that graphical view for GPRP because this video is talking about motorcycle engine race cars with paddle shifting support and capability, right? So let's pause on this for a minute. This is worth talking about. So why Geartronic package versus the Motec GPRP? It's pretty straightforward. But before I answer that question, I do need to make this this point. Motec has what they call their partner packages. So in a nutshell, Motec sells development licensing capability, where companies like Geartronics, as an example, purchase the development product or kits from Motec. They register with Motec. They receive a set of tools and basic templates and so on, and they're able to build their packages from the tools licensed by Motec, right? And so why Geartronics? I just talked a moment ago about, well, the GPRP package from Motec does support everything that you probably would need or want, like paddle shifting. There are two primary reasons why I highly recommend the Geartronics package with Motec. And by the way, it's very equivalent to the GPRP in the basic functionality set. And one more point on that. They started with the GPRP elements that are provided to the developers in the partner program. So they didn't build from scratch. They took the basic GPRP as a starting place and built on top of that. That's a key point. But the first reason, and this is a big one, the GPRP Motec package does not support what's called half shifts. So if you think about it, motorcycle engines are sequential gearboxes. They're a one down and neutral and up, right? So it's you have that neutral between first and second, as I'm trying to show here in this this piece that I'm pointing to, and that neutral between first and second is what's referred to as a half shift. Geartronics does a lot of things in managing their shifting algorithm capabilities within the ECU itself, but Geartronics supports the half shift functionality, which means you're able to easily put the engine in neutral easily, and without that, and I know this for a fact in trying to use GPRP, you're not going to be able to get your engine into neutral, which I think would be a huge problem, rolling around the pits and so on, right? But the second reason, Geartronics has been around for quite a few years. Their expertise in shifting and paddle shifting capability in multiple different cars, race cars, and such is extensive, and you will find by using the Geartronics package, you're going to find that you have not only a flawless executing shifting system, but one that can be tuned and tweaked if there is a need, and you have Geartronics engineering support that allows or provides access to do that. So those two reasons alone, I think you're probably going to want to look at the Geartronics package. And this screen here really is just showing you, if you haven't seen the M1 Tune application, that's all this is showing here on the top left, this big graphic view. Focus down towards the bottom here though. So if I see, and here I have loaded the Motec GPRP package, and in the different workbooks under the menuing system that you have in M1 Tune, here you can see what you have. And so in this example, I'm showing the M150, and you can see number 1, tuning, number 2, initial setup, and so on. You can see those for yourself. Scrolling here to the right, you see the Geartronics package sitting next to that. It has all of those same menu workbook main topics, with that one addition towards the bottom. You see number 9 down here where it says Geartronics. Well, that's the added shift functionality that and modules that Geartronics put in their package. That's all that is. So that helps you understand that, okay? So let's spend a few minutes on just the paddle shift solution itself, and I think what we'll do here is I'll show you a little bit about kind of past standalone, and then what the new solution looks like. This is a busy slide, but let's focus on this just for a minute. So if you have not used Geartronics in the past, this shows a couple different diagrams and a few different pictures of an external standalone Geartronics solution or package, right? And this top graphical view shows what they call their GCU, which is their control module, and here's the picture of it right here underneath it as the module. But this shows you all the different types of interfaces that it needs for it to be able to work. So you can see, where it has connectivity into your ignition coil power, where it has connectivity into your gear sensor, and so on. You can kind of get the idea. And this picture here to the right basically shows, kind of from a system level view in your race car, the types of components that you would need for, again, this is the external standalone paddle shifter. So a compressor for air, a reservoir for air storage. You have your valve blocks, your blocks that allow you to control pneumatic air. 2 different modules, like the gear, the shifting actuator itself, or the throttle blipper, and so on. So that's what those are. And if we look at these pictures here in the bottom, this graphical view here to the far left bottom is the paddle shift software from Geartronics to configure, log, tune, and such the Geartronics GPUs. So that's all that picture is showing you, what that looks like. And then here are these various different pictures. You see here where I'm pointing the actuator. Again, that's the device that actually is moving your shift lever in your sequential gearbox. The valve block assembly, and that's either a 2 or 3-way. An air compressor, the reservoir, the blipper, and just a sample of what a paddle might look like for your steering wheel. Okay, so I just wanted to show you from an external system point of view, these are the different types of pieces or components that you would need for an overall system. So now let's look at the new Motec and Motec Geartronics solution. So this is actually talking about GPRP, but for this purpose of this broader diagram, it's the same for the most part, right? So just think of GPRP replaced with Geartronics, and this diagram applies. So a simple first starting point is that all the core logic, the software, is executing within the ECU itself. There is no external device required or needed for shifting. So things like coils, like injectors, like drive-by-wire, gear sensor position, all those are already part of data, sensory inputs or control outputs that the ECU is going to require and have just to simply run your engine anyhow, right? So the additional add-ins are I/O, or a couple digital inputs from your paddle shifts directly into the ECU. You'll have a couple outputs that control your pneumatic system. In this case, if you're enabling a power for a air compressor, if you go with the air compressor, your physical shift actuator, and so on. So there's very simple diagram. The number of components needed to build a modern paddle shift system using Motec is greatly reduced from the previous external one. Okay. So let me talk about this for a minute. So, the basic recommendation or solution and steps that you would need to take. So the first, two primary reasons to upgrade, and this is my opinion, for Motec and Geartronics, is one, you want to seek the absolute maximum power gain that you can out of your engine. And number two, you want drive-by-wire supported paddle shifting functionality embedded into the simplistic system. And the Motec M150 ECU is the recommended ECU to go with. So what would you do? What are the steps you would need to go through? So the first, obviously, replace your OEM or factory motorcycle ECU with the Motec ECU. You'll need to add the Geartronics package for that ECU that provides the paddle shifting and GPRP type functionality into it. Then you're going to have to incorporate into your car, right? So you're going to need to build or buy a wiring harness, okay? You're going to need dyno, you're going to need some engine tuning for your engine, or purchase a pre-tuned, pre-built, tuned map for your specific engine. You're going to need to leverage your current sensors, or expand or modify, some mix of new sensors for your vehicle. And you're going to need to, leverage your current data logger, dash, or upgrade to different options at that point. So this is the basic high-level view of and steps that you'll need to take. So I talked about engine performance being one. So I want to talk about what I've actually gone through and what we actually saw ourselves through physical test and development. So the very first one, and the engine is the same, just so you know. So we used a 2019 ZX10RR motor, and this page and this dyno sheet here to the right is using the Gen 4 throttle bodies and Gen 4 ECU. So this was a 2019 motor, but with a slightly older ECU and throttle bodies, and that was for the purpose of external paddle shifting support and capability, nothing more than that. It operated open loop for fuel management, and the headers used were the Brock's, the Sidewinders, the 4 into 2 into 1, Sunoco 100 unleaded race fuel. It did have the Kawasaki race camshafts installed. Compression ratio roughly around 14.7 thereabouts to 1. So this shows you horsepower, torque, and this motor was producing peak at about 207, if you can see that, just almost 208 horsepower, top torque at about 85.6, which is pretty good. So that's the basics of this. Now this next sheet, and let's go ahead and move here, same motor again. Primary difference, this is using the Motec 150 ECU. It's using the Geartronics package for the firmware within the ECU, and a couple call outs of, I think, key differences here. So fuel management. So this is closed loop lambda. It's not open loop. This is drive-by-wire. So this is using the appropriate 2019 later gen throttle bodies, stock OEM injectors and so on for this engine. The addition of NOx sensors was added, not really a performance advantage, simply mentioning the fact that there was extra monitoring, if you will, for engine potential challenges. So NOx sensors was added. Headers were changed using the 4-to-1 Voodoo Sidewinder headers. Same fuel, same camshaft, same compression ratio, and so on. Looking at the dyno chart here, you can see this produced 223 horsepower. By the way, mention this as well. This is both of these dyno runs were at George Dean Racing Engines up in Washington. So same dyno and so on as well. This engine produced 223.5 horsepower, top if I can talk here, top torque at about 91.6 foot-pounds of torque. Pretty impressive. We saw that this thing just continued to pull and continued to climb, which we were quite impressed with. So that's a performance view. And granted, headers, different throttle bodies, a couple elements here that were slightly different did provide some benefit, but the amount of control and capability within the ECU to extract this type of power, we saw through, this was more than one day, by the way. We had almost 3 days, but 2.5 days of dyno tuning with Motec top engineers on this thing to extract this. So there are performance gains to be had, okay? So let's pull away from here. I want to show you the dyno pull really quick, and then we'll come back on the video, the rest of this presentation from there, okay? So let's go watch this dyno pull. Come on.
Money shot right here.
Okay, so that was a dyno pull of the Motec ZX10RR motor. I hope you enjoyed that. So let's get back on to the rest of this presentation. So I want to talk about some of the parts that you would need to convert your race engine, your bike motorcycle engine to Motec and paddle shifting. So the Motec 150 ECU, again, is highly recommended. There are a few limitations with the 130, like digital input, CAN bus limitations, and a few other things. The 150 minimum is what I am recommending. The Geartronic package for the 150, you'll need to have paddle shifters, right? Directly mounted on your steering wheel, and these will be direct I/O inputs into the ECU directly. On your steering wheel or dash, you'll need to have a neutral and a limp mode button, and these are momentary buttons, easy to install, and these are, again, direct inputs right into the ECU. My recommendation, and I'll talk about your different options here in just a minute, but recommendation would be you go with a high pressure pneumatic air pressure for your race car. And here's a small picture. What I use, these are rated at 4,500 psi. They're carbon fiber tanks, very lightweight, and just big enough where you can get more than enough run time, well into an hour if you need to, with just one bottle. So that's what I use, and that's what I would recommend. You'll need to have these shift valves. This shows a 3-block. You'll need at least a 2-block, and this controls your up and downshift. The 3-block, just so you know, is only needed if you have the older legacy system where you have the blipper in place on your throttle blades, which this new solution, you do not need that. The ECU actually controls all the throttle blipping, engine cuts, and all those things directly in the ECU, okay? You'll need a downline or a line regulator for your pneumatic system, and this takes your high pressure tank and downgrades it to a line pressure that actually feeds your actuator. That's all that is. You'll need to have obviously the actuator itself. So this shows a very simple kind of a up and down pneumatic actuator, and this will be needed to shift your gears. And the Geartronic solution does require that you have a pneumatic or a tank pressure sensor in place. So that's it in general. Let me talk about the options for the system, and I kind of mentioned that a moment ago about the carbon tank. So you can either do one of two things. You can use a high pressure tank mounted in your vehicle that provides all of the air volume for your entire run, or you can use a small air compressor in your vehicle that will be generating capacity and air volume needed for your system in the car. So basic concept between the two. So the in-car pressure, this high pressure pneumatic system. So what are the pros? What are the cons, right? So from the positives, you don't have any electrical load on your vehicle, okay? And that could be an issue for some. I know I had some challenges with electrical load, so think of that. It is lightweight, it is small, and the options to mount it because of its size, and you can get a couple different tank sizes, by the way, it is a positive. On the negative, having carbon fiber tanks mounted in your vehicle, you'll need to have the ability to pressurize or charge those air tanks. And these are not your standard, 150 psi air compressor type of upper pressures, right? These are 4,500 or greater psi. That's actually quite high. And so the ability to do that becomes problematic. Now, you can do it with either a high pressure tank like I show here on the right, where you can buy or lease or rent 6,000 psi nitrogen tanks as an example. That's what I do through one of your gas providers. Or you have a charge station that I don't recommend. I've tried a few of those. They take your pressure from a 150 psi shop air compressor, and they upgrade that pressure, if you will, through mechanisms within these charge stations. They are able to charge your storage tank at the higher 4,000 psi. The negative with that is they take forever to get those pressures where they need to be. constant noise with your air compressors going and so on, if you get my point. But those are the positive and the negatives with the high pressure solution in your vehicle. Now the in-car compressor, this piece down here in the bottom, okay, it is very simple on the positive, right? You don't have to worry about supplying air to your paddle shifting ever. The negative, it does add weight, and it does add a pretty good electrical load to your charging system. So you got to keep that in mind. But those are the two options that are available for you, okay? So let's talk about Motec, you know, and just general capability. Motec, AIM's another one out there, of course, that I'm a big fan of. But Motec is definitely a class of its own. If you've not used Motec over the years past, the new modern, the M1 series, and the new tools and technology, they're phenomenal. But what I like about the Motec system is your ability to expand is dramatic. The additional software features can be added over time. So you can start with the basic logger as an example, and maybe you want to upgrade to more logging capability or add more channels, more I/O. You can do all that simply through a licensing mechanism into your product, which I actually find very, very powerful. Another thing I have to note here is that if you're going to upgrade to Motec, the ECU for your vehicle, for the reasons I mentioned, superior paddle shifting capability and engine performance, you don't have to upgrade your entire car to Motec. You could just focus on the ECU. And so I want to make sure you understand that Motec supports all the CAN bus protocols. You can have, as an example, like I went through, my previous data acquisition in my F1000 was an entirely AIM system in place. So from the Formula steering wheel to the Evo 5 logger and so on, those devices and the Motec ECU are compatible. So just like previously with the AIM system, where they would listen on the CAN bus for the OEM ECU for engine RPM and water temperatures, right, and so on and so on. They can do the same listening on the Motec ECU's CAN bus and extract the same information. So I just want to make sure you understand that point. This is a couple of snapshots. You know, I mentioned a moment ago the acquisition software, or the analysis software, sorry, from Motec is a great feature. I got to say, I personally think their analysis software for racers is awesome. And this just shows a couple of screenshots. Actually, it's from my actual system itself. You can have and program as many different views, slice and dice, and look at your data in so many different ways. I find the software, the i2 software from Motec, to be phenomenal, okay? So let me pause on this for a minute, only a couple slides left. So my opinion, benefits of switching to Motec from the OEM ECU, and some of this is a recap, but just to make sure I drive the point home, right? So engine performance, I saw it. You can see it as well. All the paddle shifting capability and controls embedded now in the ECU. So you're removing devices from your race car, you know, all the external stuff, or most of the items. Now it's all embedded in the ECU. Your engine, and this is a choice of yours, of course, but you know, to run in closed loop lambda is highly recommended. No longer having to deal with all those reflashing and adjustments of fuel pressure, at the different tracks and different atmospheric days and so on. Drive-by-wire supported and just standard is a great add. I like having knock sensors, this kind of additional monitoring under extreme engine conditions. So you can have that. No longer, and this was a big one for me, as I talked about earlier, no longer this black box thing, right? Where the factory ECUs, I mean, using the Wolux and the other flashing softwares, let's be real about it, right? Those are not endorsed per se from the engine manufacturers that built their own ECUs. This is a kind of a hacksaw way, if you will. I mean, it's a hacking into the ECU. And anyway, my point with that is you don't have access to virtually everything in control algorithms and control for your engine that you do with Motec. Okay, this one as well. So, again, AIM, I love the AIM stuff as well, but AIM, for an example, has upper limits of logging frequency around 200 hertz, kind of in that range. Motec, you can go all the way up to 1,000 hertz. So 1 billion channels, and 1,000 hertz logging is definitely very intense, which you need for things like suspension and some of the higher end channels. Another reason, support for the i2 Pro analysis software, I think, is a huge positive. And last point, you have multiple different CAN buses. They can all interoperate with multiple different devices, like I talked about, AIM and other. But being that you have multiple CAN buses, you don't have to worry about saturating or lagging or consuming any bus channel specifically. So you're able to disperse that load as much as you need to. So I think those are all benefits for at least considering switching to Motec. So you know what? It's a lot of talking. How about we break at this point? Let me show you a little bit of video of my Formula 1000 on track. And this is with the 2019 motor that I talked about earlier. It's all Motec. So the paddle shifting and control. So you can just listen to this for a minute and then we'll come back, okay? Let's go on. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed that short little video piece of the F1000 on track, and that you were able to listen to some of the shifting and such. If you have any questions on that, by the way, just send me a comment. So let's get into pricing, because I suspect a few of you are thinking, Motec, oh my God, this is going to cost me, my firstborn. It is a higher end solution for sure, but let's get into that so you understand what you're looking at. So I'm only focusing on the M150. I mentioned this earlier, and it's because of the I/O. I believe that 150 is the minimum ECU package that you would want to consider. So the M150, the base M150 with no firmware package is $29.95. And by default, you get level 1 logging, so that is, it's limited. It's 10 hertz, but that is included with the base package. And these other items are optional, so you can do it at the time of purchase or you can do it later should you want to. So from level 2 logging to level 3 logging, you can see this for yourself. Those are additional add-ons, again, from 200 hertz to 1000 hertz and so on. And i2 Pro upgrade is $939. And again, you can use i2 Standard. It's free. There's no additional cost. It's only if you felt you needed some of the additional math capability that might make you want to think about the Pro Analyst software. But again, those are purely optional. Okay. So on the packages, remember it's both. You got the hardware and the package. So for Motec, and this is true for any one of the ECUs, right? So if you went with, instead of the 150 ECU for the 170 as an example, these package prices are the same, just so you know. But this shows the Motec GPA at $695, GPR at $1149, and the GPRP at $1695. Okay, the Geartronics package, again, very similar functionality to the GPRP, but with the added Geartronics paddle shifting algorithms and control. It's the same price as the Motec GPRP, so that's $1695, and you're gonna want the Geartronics package, as I mentioned earlier, for those reasons. Okay. So a little bit of plug for ourselves, and we'll kind of wrap up here. But you know, Nixon Motorsports, you know, we can help you with parts engineering support, you know, in your upgrade. So keep that in mind. If we can help you in some way, of course, just reach out to us. So supported engines below. I want to talk about this. Now, if there are other engines that are not here and you would have interest, you know, again, reach out to us. But for the 2019 or newer ZX10R or RR motor, we do offer and sell a professionally tuned map for that engine. So this was, as I mentioned earlier, this is from Motec, like super tuners that we hired to do this work. So we offer that map licensed to you for your particular ECU for $27.15. So that would be a drop-in, plug-and-play for this engine package. And if you wanted to purchase all the wiring details involved and all the configuration aspects involved, we also sell that for $750. Now you can do that yourself. There's a fair amount of work into it, but those are the things that we offer. Now, the GSX-R, so the Suzuki, the 1000cc Suzukis, the 19 and newer, we will have the same Motec kind of professionally tuned map available, and the wiring and pinout and config like the ZX10R shortly. But for the moment, pricing's not determined, so you'll have to check back with us on that. You know, multiple other items, you know, from pneumatic parts and pieces, you know, carbon tanks, I mean, high pressure fill valves, all of those sorts of things. If there's an interest, go to our online store at nixonmotorsports.com. You'll be able to find a bunch of that material there. That's it. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. Motec and Geartronics, I believe, is a great solution for many of you who are looking for performance and paddle shifting capability for your motorcycle powered race cars. As always, I appreciate the support that you provide, the comments that we receive. If you haven't subscribed, I have to ask, you know, consider doing so. But thank you very much. I hope you found this of value, and stay tuned. There'll be many more videos to come. Thank you. Have a great day. Ciao.